On today's show, we're going to run through a dream perfect free agency plan for the Atlanta Falcons. 5 steps to absolutely kick the month of March's ass. But really quickly, I want to reach 20,000 subscribers on the channel before free agency gets underway. And we are less than 200 subs away, which I think you guys might take interest in some of the fun YouTube analytics. The most amount of subscribers we have picked up on a video this year was 239. So it can be done. If you haven't joined the channel yet, please help us go ahead and do so. All right, let's talk free agency now because the Atlanta Falcons have some dough to spend. There are some great free agents out there to be signed, and I think they could make some big splash moves in the next couple of weeks. First, let's talk about what's actually in their wallet. When it comes to cap space for Atlanta, they right now, as things stand, have $37.4 million according to Over the Cap. But if they make some very minimal releases like Taylor Heineke, Lorenzo Carter, kind of guys like that, Mike Hughes, I think that's going to absolutely blow your speakers out. They could go all the way up to $57 million. So they can definitely get some deep pockets to spend on marquee free agents. Now, the first step in a perfect free agency plan for Atlanta, you might have guessed it. It's trading for Justin Fields. I understand that there is mixed emotions on trading for Fields. Some of you want to sign Kirk Cousins. I maintain the belief that Kirk Cousins is going to re-sign in Minnesota. And if that's the case, then trading for Justin Fields is a great option and one that I actually prefer over signing Kirk Cousins to begin with anyway. Now, since it's a dream free agency, why not fudge with what it would cost to get Justin Fields? Because there are rumors that the market for Fields is not very robust. And if that's the case, maybe Atlanta doesn't have to give up the 43rd overall pick like we have thought all along. I mean, it cost the Panthers a second and some day 3 picks to get Sam Darnold, but maybe Atlanta could land Justin Fields for both, with 2 third-round picks, 1 third-round pick this year, and a future third-round pick, because ultimately that might be the best offer the Chicago Bears get. And if that's the case, I think this is an absolute home run trade for Atlanta. If it doesn't work out, okay, it cost you 2/3. That's not going to set your franchise back. But if it does work out, and you're able to capture what have been some phenomenal moments and stretches from Justin Fields' 3-year career in Chicago and build off of that with a much better roster in Atlanta in a lot of ways, especially up front at the running back position. I mean, talk about what's one of the best dual-threat quarterbacks we've ever seen joining an offense in Atlanta that is ready to roll, just needs the right man behind the wheel. I think with Justin Fields, with better coaching, because the Chicago Bears coaching staff, since he has gotten there, has been a disaster. He got drafted by Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace. Recognize the name? He's now with Atlanta right now, okay? They get fired a year later. It was also a very bizarre situation because they signed Andy Dalton to a $10 million contract. They didn't expect to get a quarterback in the draft. Justin Fields started to slip a little bit. They moved up to get him. And then they played this weird song and dance of, well, we did pay Andy Dalton $10 million. Let's roll with him. And then they're like, no, Andy Dalton sucks. Let's go with Justin Fields. So back and forth, they fire that regime. They bring a new regime in that did not draft Justin Fields. So already we're off to a bit of a bad start. And then they hire Luke Getsy, one of the worst play callers in football last year, to be in charge of this offense the last 2 seasons. And it was just a disaster in terms of not leaning into Justin Fields' strengths, especially in year 3. But if you still don't like Justin Fields, how about you just remember when he played the Falcons at the end of 2023? And he threw for 268 yards, tacked down 45 on the ground, some very important first down rushes by Fields, 2 total touchdowns. You guys saw it with your own 2 eyes. This guy can play. I'm telling you, Justin Fields is a starting quarterback in this league, and I think for the price of 2 third-round picks, it's worth the risk. Very high ceiling, very high, I don't know how this analogy is going. It's a high risk, low reward. How about that? Okay, or no, high reward, low risk. I really botched this entire thing. So listen, with that being said, if you're looking for more awful English, subscribe to the channel today, because if/when Justin Fields gets traded, hopefully I can do a better job of communicating the trade to you guys like I just did a moment ago. But we'll be going live on the channel, and I don't want you to miss a thing. All right, let's move on to the second step in a dream free agency for the Falcons. Signed defensive end Danielle Hunter. Atlanta, no secret, has never really been able to figure out the pass rushing situation in their entire franchise's history. They've just never been able to get that spot down. So how about you go spend $70 million to make sure you get it right? 3-year, $70 million contract. This is my projection for what Denil Hunter could get in free agency. That's an average of $23.3 million. That's not going to even make him a top 5 highest paid defensive end. And I'd guarantee $45 million. Basically a 2-year, $45 million contract if you really wanted to get out of it before that third season. But Hunter, over the last 4 seasons with the Vikings, he did have a stretch where he missed some time, like missed all of 2020, only played 7 games in 2021. But the guys put together back-to-back complete seasons and just complete domination in both of those seasons. You might not have thought this, but Denil Hunter, the last 2 seasons actually, is tied for 4th in sacks in the league, right? Right there with Maxx Crosby, half a sack behind Micah Parsons, only 3 sacks behind the leader, Myles Garrett, 35 tackles for loss, 5 forced fumbles. He truly has been one of the top 5, top 6 edge rushers in this game the last 2 seasons. And at 29 years old, he still has some good years left in the tank as he's really just entering his prime or hitting his prime right now. It's also worth reminding everyone that the Falcons, as always, are in need of pass rushing help, and their top 2 sack leaders last year, Calais Campbell and Bud Dupree at 6.5 each, are unrestricted free agents. Now, I think they're going to work to bring Calais Campbell back, but unlikely we see Bud Dupree return, so they've got to find a way to replace your top 2 sack leaders, and what better way to do that than getting the best guy on the market, right? Josh Allen and Brian Burns were both franchise tags, so just cross them off your list. Denil Hunter is the number 1 guy. So now I want you all to play GM for me. Would you give this contract out? Do you feel like Denil Hunter is the big cheese? Is he worth a monster 3-year, $70 million contract? What will be one of the biggest contracts given out in recent Falcons history? Yes or no? Sound off for me in the comments section below. All right, let's fast forward to step 3. Let's sign wide receiver Gabe Davis. I tossed and turned a little bit on this step, and it is dream free agency, but I wasn't going to go overboard with it and just get all the good players since that's probably unlikely. But I think Gabe Davis could be a very attainable piece for the Atlanta Falcons. He's been extremely productive for the Buffalo Bills, despite not being their number 1 guy, right? He's in the shadows of Stephon Diggs, and he still has done one thing and one thing only: scoring touchdowns at a very high rate. He's never gone over 50 grabs in a season, but he still has 7, 14, 21, 27 touchdowns since entering the league. And in case you're wondering, 27 touchdowns since 2020, that's in pretty good company with a guy like Amari Cooper, for example. That's tied for 13th in the NFL. In fact, since 2020, when he entered the NFL, he is the only wide receiver with 20 or more touchdowns, but has less than 300 targets and 200 receptions. So if you're looking for like a high touchdown and yard percentage and just efficiency and all those buzzwords and terms, he's your guy. Give him more usage, give him a bigger role, give him more targets. And I mean, what he's been able to do with the few targets he has gotten has been astounding. And I think being the number 2 in Atlanta, he could really start to get into a rhythm. Now, there are some other free agent wide receivers out there. Calvin Ridley is obviously a big name to go along with it. I picked Gabe Davis over Marquise Brown because I think Davis will be cheaper than Marquise Brown. And low-key, he might even be better than Marquise Brown. If they can't get that, Darnell Mooney, Kendrick Bourne, Noah Brown, Tyler Boyd, Osborne, Curtis Samuel, Odell Beckham Jr., those are also much more affordable, like 1 year, maybe max 2-year cheaper contracts than the first few names on that list. Speaking of Calvin Ridley, he's actually step 4 on our dream free agency plan, and it's not about signing Calvin Ridley. It's actually encouraging the Jacksonville Jaguars to re-sign Calvin Ridley before March 11th. That's the key day. Get this done, Duval, before March 11th. If they do, then Atlanta will receive a 2nd-round pick from Jacksonville. However, if they do not re-sign him before March 11th. Even if they sign him on March 12th, it's going to be a third-round pick coming over from Jacksonville as a result of that Calvin Ridley trade. So look at the potential draft picks for the Falcons, right? They could have their own first, like we mentioned, like we know. But on top of that, there are some other great picks they could get if they add Calvin Ridley, or if the Jags, I beg your pardon, add Calvin Ridley before March 11th. If they're able to hold on to their second because of our dream trade earlier, I mean, we're talking having a first, a second, giving up one of your 2/3, or I guess it'd be one of your own third, because the Jacksonville third turned into a second. I'm getting lost in the draft picks. But the point being is they could have the 8th overall pick, the 43rd overall pick, and the 48th overall pick in the draft. That's 3 picks in the top 50. I like that a whole lot more than signing Calvin Ridley to a monster contract, because he's going to be the highest paid wide receiver in free agency this year. And I don't think he probably will end up really living up to that contract, but that's the free agency offseason. If you're the number one guy at a position, a team's going to overpay you. So for me, the dream is get Justin Fields without giving up your 43rd overall pick, and then get a second rounder from Jacksonville, and you could come up with something like this. If you want an edge rusher, fine. Let's go Dallas Turner at number 8. Pair him with Danielle Hunter, and we're ready to roll. 43rd overall, let's get Drake London, Gabe Davis, and A.D. Mitchell. It's a little bit of a fall for A.D. Mitchell, but at 43, I don't think it's out of the question. And then I figured at 48, we're kind of just playing with house money here. Let's go best player available hunting. Like, let's go get a guy in the trenches that's going to help us win at the line of scrimmage. And I think Braden Fisk out of Florida State, as Grady Jarrett works back from a torn ACL, Calais Campbell's getting up in the age column. A lot of the defensive line are free agents this offseason. Improving in the trenches is never a bad idea. So that, to me, is the real dream. Finally, step number 5 in this dream free agency, sign cornerback Darious Williams. Not a household name, because I don't think the Falcons are going to spend big money at cornerback. Remains to be seen whether or not they decide to extend A.J. Terrell, but for now, the former Jags corner who was recently released despite having a really good 2023 season, I think could come into Atlanta, serve in that CB2 role, sign him to a 2-year, $16 million contract. That's an average of $8 million, guarantee 9. So if you really want to get out of it after one season, it's not going to break the bank or anything like that. But he was really good last year for the Jags. Like, I'm talking 4 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, having a nose for the football, former Super Bowl champion with the LA Rams. Oh, I wonder what Falcons coach was with the Rams when Raheem Morris. Don't you think he might want to reunite with an old pal? I mean, his coverage stats were pretty solid. Like, again, I'm not looking to get the number one corner in the free agency market, because I think you want to have at least a little bit of a plan to extend A.J. Terrell and leave some money aside for that. So adding Darious Williams, you can still draft a rookie corner, and you've got Clark Phillips on the way up. You're just going to really improve a very vital position, which is DBs in the National Football League. So this is my contract projection for Williams. I think it would really round out this Falcons defense. So let's re-hit my dream free agency plan one more time for the Falcons. Just trade for Justin Fields, give up 2/3, third this year, and a future third. So you still got some good draft picks for day 2 of the draft. Sign defensive end Denil Hunter. Get Gabe Davis. Pray that the Jags re-sign Calvin Ridley before what day? March 11th. And sign cornerback Darious Williams. Grade my free agency plan. A, B, C, D, or F. If all these things happen, tell me you're not going to just jump out of your socks. That would be an awesome month of March for Atlanta. Before we sign off and get on out of here, I do want to give a shout out to the Big Shot Agenda, who sent in a super thanks here on the channel. So salute to you, the Big Shot Agenda. He asked, would trading our 8th pick to Carolina for Bryce Young be a bad idea? Yes, I would say so. It's kind of an interesting thought, though. Like, would Carolina want to get out that quickly? But I think a good way to ask this question is, if Bryce Young entered the draft right now, after playing 1 year in the NFL, where would he go? Jeremy, where do you think Bryce Young would go?
I still think he would go first round.
I think he'd go first round. I don't think he'd go top 10.
I think he would be maybe the fourth quarterback off the board.
Right? Would that be 8? Not like I think he might go to a team like
J.J. McCarthy might go top 10.
Yeah, I'd be very curious to know where GMs would draft Bryce Young right now.
But the real question is, if they're willing to move off of him after 1 year, do you want that?
That's a good point.
There's a reason why they want to get rid of him after 1 year if that's the case.
My prediction is if Bryce Young entered the draft right now, maybe a team like the Jets at 10 would take him to sit behind Rodgers for a year. That could be a possibility.
He's not making it past 11 and 12.
Yeah, I think someone would be like, all right, it's worth it. That will do it for us on this edition of Falcons Today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will see you later.